Now I'd like to introduce our opening general session speaker, Dr. Adam Saenz. How did Adam Saenz go from juvenile detention to 2 doctorates with training at Harvard Medical School and the University of Oxford? Adam will tell you it was the power of a teacher. Dr. Saenz, author of The Power of a Teacher, will be the first to admit that his journey through life so far has been amazing. It's been filled with tremendous highs and profound lows. At every important junction, there have been 2 common elements, 2 lifesavers that appeared when he really needed them: education and teachers. Along the way, this son of blue-collar parents has gained 2 doctorate degrees. Adam is not your ordinary school psychologist. His personal story will inspire you. His general session will empower you. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Adam Saenz.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Let's do this. You've been sitting for a minute. Everybody stand up where you're at and just stretch. Reach for the stars and stretch. Just 1 minute. There you go. Stretch it out. Now, before you sit down, I want you to turn to somebody, shake their hand, and say, "Welcome to Vegas." There you go. All right. Feeling the love out here in Vegas. All right, have a seat, thank you. I have one goal this morning, one goal. My goal this morning is to encourage you. That's all I want to do, is I just want to encourage you. So we're coming up on winter break for most of you, I'm sure, and I'm thinking you could use some encouragement. Honeymoon's over for the school year, right? So I just want to encourage you. And I am going to start that process of encouraging you by sharing with you something that happened to me on Monday, August 25th, 2008. This was an event that was so significant for me, it literally changed the course of my professional development. That day was my first day as a real, live substitute teacher. Now, since I am a licensed psychologist, I understand that the quickest way to heal from a traumatic event is to talk about it, right? So with that in mind, let's let my healing continue. I remember I was on the campus that morning at 7 a.m. and I was fired up. I was so excited because I was going to make a difference. I was going to change kids' lives, right? So excited. So I pull up to the campus, pull into the parking lot at 7 o'clock. I walk in, and the receptionist there, I had done professional development on this campus before, so she recognized me. And so I walk in, and I'm handing her my ID to check in, and she said, "Well, good morning, Dr. Saenz. I didn't know we have professional development today." And I said, "No, ma'am, actually we don't. I'm here to substitute teach." And she kind of looked at me funny, and she said, "Really, you're going to substitute teach?" I said, "Yeah, I am." So she's handing me back my ID, she's giving me my name badge, and she said, "Well, I'm curious, whose class are you going to be teaching in?" And I forgot the teacher's name, Miss Smith. It was a 3rd grade class. I said, "I'll be in Miss Smith's class, 3rd grade. So as she's handing me my badge and my ID, she says, "Good luck with that." And I said, "Oh, the haters are going to hate, but I'm here to make a difference. I'm not going to listen to that. I'm here to change kids' lives," right? So I get to my classroom, 7:30, I'm fired up, and those kids showed up. Oh, mercy. Everything went out the window. So what I didn't know, so this was the first Monday of school. So the kids started school on Wednesday. So they were there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They had the weekend off, so this was their first Monday back. And what I didn't know was that the teacher, for whatever reason, she came in and rearranged all the desks that weekend. So the kids came in, and they were completely confused because on Friday the desks looked like this, on Monday they looked like this, on Friday my teacher was a Caucasian female, today's Monday and I got this guy, and it was chaos. So the kids were running. There was one kid that was literally jumping across desks, And I had that, just the deer in the headlight moment, like I panicked, like when you jump into a cold swimming pool and you just don't know what to do. I had that moment, thinking, what did I get myself into? So I'm panicked, these kids are going crazy, and I'm thinking, what do I do? And then, bing, my first thought, aha, I got it. I need a behavior intervention. I'm a school psychologist. This is easy, a behavior intervention. A behavior intervention, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And then bing, I said, I know, I need a research-based behavior intervention, because I don't want the RTI police to take me away. Research, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then I said, oh, I got it. Like my friend says, this ain't rocket surgery, man. I got this. So what I did was I found a dry erase marker. And that was going to be my research-based behavior intervention. I said, oh, I got this. You got a school of inner-city third-grade kids. Everybody knows all you have to do is write their name on the board and put the fear of God in them, right? I said, oh, I got it, So that's my research-based intervention, is this dry erase marker. So for any kid that starts acting out, I'll just write their name on the board. And so that's going to be tier 1. And I said, but I know some kids need a little more. They need a little tier 2. So I said, for those kids that don't get it when I write their name on the board, I'll just give them a check mark, and that'll be my tier 2. I got this thing, right? So this kid stands up and throws a book. And I said, son, what? You just threw a book. What are you doing? Yes, you did. I saw you. Look, I'm not going to stand here and argue with. Yes, you did too. I saw you do it. I am not going to argue. Yeah, I saw you do it. I said, you know what, son, that's it. What's your name? What is your name? All right, then. That's how it's going to be. Your little friend over there, what's his name? What is his name? All right, then, so what is your name? Because I'll write your name up here, right? So then just before recess, I'm trying to make this big dramatic point to the kids about how bad their behavior has been and how disappointed the teacher's going to be. And I said, you know what's really sad? I said, in 20 minutes, we're about to go to recess. Let me check this out. So I start counting names. I said, 28 of y'all are going to be stuck in here with me at recess. So this little girl in the back of the classroom, she raises her hand. She said, sir, there's only 23 kids in this classroom. Do you want a check mark, little girl? Because I will give you a check mark. And it was stupid stuff like that all day long. It was an absolute workshop in how not to lead a classroom, right? 12 hours after I stepped foot into that classroom, a bell rang. Time for lunch. I said, how is it only 11:15? Dude, I grabbed my bologna sandwich and my Starbucks. I'm just like this, headed down to the teacher's lounge. Beat at 11:15, right? Beat. So I plopped down into the teacher's lounge, and I'm just sitting there, and then this teacher walked in, and again, I had done professional development on this campus. She knew me, and she sees me sitting there, right, with PTSD written across my forehead, and so I could just see this. She was like, what do I do with this guy, right? So she just sort of very sweetly walks over, and she put her hand on the table, and she said, Dr. Saenz, is there anything I can do to help you? And I looked at her, and I said, yes, ma'am, actually, there is. I said, look, I know you don't know me that well, but I'm just going to ask you a question, and please just give me an honest answer. And she said, well, okay, I think I can do that. And I said, okay, good. I said, listen, where on this campus do y'all keep the red wine? Yeah. And see, that's what she did. She laughed. Oh, Dr. Saenz, you're so funny. I said, sister, that wasn't a joke. I need a drink. Where is the red wine? It's 5 o'clock somewhere in my heart, right? She wouldn't give it up. I don't know where they keep. So 2 seconds after I sit down with my bologna sandwich, another bell rang. Time to go back to class, right? And I regressed. It was like I was 5 years old all over again. I haven't cried in a public school since 1973. I don't want to go. I want to go home. This sucks, right? So I go back to my classroom. And we managed to make it through the afternoon, and then at the very end of the day, finally the last bell rings and the kids are walking out. And sure enough, man, the last kid to walk out of the classroom was the one that had been giving me the hardest time all day long. I think his thing was, I'm going to make this guy cry. That was his goal. So him and his little compadres over there in the corner, man, they were riding me all day long. So of course he's the last one out, right? So his name was up there. He had a check mark, he had a hashtag, he had an exclamation point. It looked like his name, and there was a blotted out profanity next to it, right? So sure enough, man, this kid's the last one out. And I'm thinking, dude, just leave, man. I want to go home, right? So he's walking out, and right before he gets to the door, he stops and he turns back and he looks at me and he said, hey, Dr. Saenz, you're pretty cool, man. Are you going to be my teacher again tomorrow? I looked that kid straight in the eye. I said, sweet Jesus, I hope not. So he walks out, he leaves, right? And then the teacher from across the hall came over to check on me, because she had been peeking in, like, to make sure I still had a pulse throughout the day, right? So she comes over and she says, well, Adam, how'd it go? And I said, you know what? I don't think it went that well. And she said, really? I said, yeah, I don't think it went that well. And she said, okay, well, let me ask you this. How many fights did you have to break up? I said, well, none. And she said, okay. She said, well, how many kids did you have to chase across the railroad tracks over there? I said, none. And she said, you had a great day. So I gathered my stuff and I went home and I had my red wine. And so I'm sitting there just kind of reflecting on it. And then a couple of days later, you know that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words? A couple of days later, my daughter, either she texted me or emailed me this picture, and I thought, oh my gosh, that picture captures my first day as a substitute teacher. Let me share it with you. There. Yeah, that. I'm that guy. I'm that guy right there. I'm that guy. And this right here, that's that third grade class. They're just squatting the collective rear end of their bad behavior on my skill set. This dude's going to come in here with his dry erase marker, going to change the world, going to make a difference in kids' lives. Is that all you got? Take that. That's it. That was my first day as a substitute teacher. So people that know me in my community, they ask me, they say, Adam, I don't get it, man. You got 2 doctorate degrees, you're a licensed psychologist, you have Ivy League training. Why are you substitute teaching? Let me tell you why. I substitute teach. It started in 2002, my first year in public schools as a psychologist. It started with the look that I started getting from lovely educators in the school system. So what would happen is I would get called in as a school psychologist and for kids to consult with kids that, these are the kids we've tried everything and nothing's worked. So Dr. Saenz, come in and do your thing. So I come in and I do my behavior observations and I interview teachers, I interview kids, I observe, I give tests. And at the end of all of that, we come back to an IEP meeting, we sit around a table and I hand out my report and I say, okay, so here's the deal. If we're going to be successful with this kid, this is what we need to do. Let's go to the recommendation page. So everybody flips to the back of the recommendations and then I'll start reading through my recommendations. And that is when I would get the look. And the look said, are you kidding me? You expect me to do what with this kid, right? And I kept getting this look, and I thought, that's weird. Why am I getting this look? And so that happened year after year. So 2 or 3 years into it, after getting the look, I was thinking like, I'm missing something. Something's not right here. Can't figure it out though. So I was on this one campus about 2 or 3 years into it, and there was this one teacher that I had consulted with, and she was, let's not talk about her too much. So we were at this IEP meeting, and I was going over my results, and she gave me the look, right? And I was like, there's the look again. So we're leaving the meeting, and she said, Dr. Saenz, excuse me for a minute. And she called me out, and I knew it was going to happen. So I was ready for it. So she calls me out, and she says, Dr. Saenz, have you ever even taught in a classroom before? And so I knew it was coming. I said, yes, hello. I taught statistics at Texas A&M University. And she said, yeah, that's what I thought. Let me ask you a more specific question. Have you ever taught in a K through 12 public school? And I said, no, ma'am, I have not. And she said, yep, that's what I thought. And she turned around and walked off. And I thought, what an incredibly bitter little lady you are, It must suck to work with you, honestly, whatever. So, after I got over it, and I sat with it for a few days, I thought, the bottom line is that's a fair question. It really is a fair question. What if I'm that guy? What if I'm the guy with the PhD, the Ivy League guy, the ivory tower guy that he knows everything in theory, but he has no clue what it's like to be in a classroom, because I've never taught. So I thought, I hate to admit it, but it's a fair question. And so then I said, well, look, I'm too old. I'm not going to go back and change my degree and start teaching. The quickest thing I can do is substitute teach. That's as close as I'm ever going to get to really be able to understand what goes on in a classroom. And I understand that there's a difference between a substitute teacher and a full-time teacher, but that's why I started to substitute teach. And let me tell you something. The first light bulb that went off for me when after I substitute taught was this. I realized, it doesn't matter how many degrees you have or where you got them from. It doesn't matter what you think you know about education and theory. Unless you've actually been in a classroom and taught, there's no way you can understand how hard it is. Period. Can I get an amen on that? Oh, my goodness. And so it blew me away. I said, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's that demanding, and here's what really blew me away is that while the media will select isolated cases of irregular behavior or, a school that's not doing well and try to make that the norm, the bottom line is that there are incredible men and women across the country in classrooms across the country that are flat out getting it done. Just flat out taking care of business. Bottom line. So then I got really curious. I thought, oh my goodness, it's that hard to do that thing? So then I got curious. I thought, how do you get good at that? I stink at it. How do these men and women that do it so well and make it look so easy, how do they do it? And then not just how do you do it, but how do you do it well over the course of a lifetime when data show that about half of the teachers working in schools now are going to be in another field in 5 years, So how do you do it well, and how do you do it well over the course of a lifetime? And so then I got curious. I thought, well, maybe it's a function of educational leadership. Maybe it boils down to having good leadership. And I thought, well, if that's the case, I don't really have much to contribute to that discussion. I'm not an educational leadership guy. I'm a psychologist. Thought, well, maybe it's a function of good curriculum instruction. Maybe if we have good curriculum and good instruction, then that's what makes teachers excel over the course of a lifetime. And I thought, well, if that's the case, I don't have anything to contribute to that discussion either. I'm not a C&I guy. I don't know much about it at all. So then I felt stuck. I thought, well, that's a bummer because I'm really curious about what makes teachers who excel over the course of a lifetime, but I'm not qualified to answer the question. So then I thought, wait a minute, Adam, hold on. You have a PhD in psychology. You're a licensed psychologist. You have a doctorate of ministry and pastoral counseling. You're ordained clergy. That's your angle. Why don't you look at it more broadly? So what are the psychological and existential variables that drive vocational satisfaction? And apply that to an educator. And I thought, now that is something I can wrap my brain around. That is a question that I'm qualified to answer. So I started my research. I partnered with the Department of Sociology at Texas A&M and started looking into this question about these psychological and spiritual or existential variables that drive vocational satisfaction. And basically what I found is that there are two variables, two characteristics of educators that excel over the course of their lifetime in education. And these two variables are true of anyone in any field that does what they do well and does it over the course of a lifetime. Here's the first one. If I'm going to be an educator, if I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm going to do what I do well over the course of my lifetime, number one, I have to understand that it's not a job. A job is just a basic agreement to swap labor for a paycheck. I also have to understand that it's not a career. A career is just a job with advancement opportunities. But if I'm going to excel as an educator over the course of my lifetime, what I have to do is I have to understand that it's a calling. And another way to say that is that I have linked my deepest value system, whatever that value system is, whether it's a major world religion, whether it's a philosophical belief system, whether it's rational empiricism, whatever it is, I have linked it with what I do on a day-to-day basis. And so here's how that plays out. Let's say a first-year teacher, by any chance, any first-year teachers in the crowd? Raise your hand if you're a first-year teacher. Oh, I see some. Y'all give them some love. Yes. Here's what your year looks like. You know who the first-year teachers are on campus because they're the one, their hair is perfect. Their makeup is perfect on that first day. Their outfit is cute. Oh, man. And they're teaching like their hair's on fire. And they're loving those kids, and they're going 90-0. And then, so those are the first years. And then if you're lucky, you will make it to the third week of October, and you say, my goodness, is it Thanksgiving yet, right? And then so Thanksgiving comes around, and then you'll say these words. You'll sit down at the Thanksgiving table, and you'll do this. You'll go, I can't figure out why. I can't stop eating. Right? So Thanksgiving rolls around, you wake up from a food stupor on Monday, you go to campus, you make it through the Christmas break, holiday break, and you say, oh my goodness, I made it through my first semester. I overate at Thanksgiving. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to drink. So there you go. So you sit down in front of Lifetime Network with a bottle of red wine and a box of tissues, and that's it. So you spend your winter break crying at Lifetime Network, and so there you go. But you're not eating, you're drinking, right? So then you wake up from a drunken stupor in January, back to school, and you say, okay, I got just enough juice in my tank to get me through spring break. You get to spring break, and you say, you come home that Friday, and you say, I'm too tired to overeat. I'm too tired to drink. I just want to sleep. So you lay down for a 10-minute nap that first Friday, and the next thing you know, it's 10 days later, and you're late for work on Monday, right? And so then at that point, you're in such a panic, you say, hair, makeup, ain't nobody got time for that. No. You slap on your sweatpants and you head out the door, right? You make it to April, your kids have a date with Destiny, they take a test, and then by the time May rolls around, you're a full-blown zombie, and you've got blood trickling out of the corner of your mouth. It's not lipstick, it's blood, because that kid that you've tried everything and nothing's worked, you finally just decided, I'm just going to eat him, right? So you make it to May, you're a zombie, right? And then the only thing that's going to snap you out of that zombie stupor is that you walk into the teacher's lounge, you look in your mailbox, you see this letter, and it says so-and-so ISD, it's got your name on it, and you read it and you say, oh my God, they renewed my contract, yes! Woo, I didn't get fired, I got a job, I'm going to the mall, yes, right? That's your first year, all right? Then your second year rolls around. You got a job and you say, I got this now. I feel good about this. So I know the kids, I know the curriculum, I know the parents, I know my colleagues, I know the building. So you start moving and shaking, you feel good. Third year, you're feeling really good. You find your sweet spot. You take on a little more responsibility. Fourth year, fifth year, right around your fifth or your sixth year, you have what I call the Dunkin' Donuts moment. Remember, back in my day, there was this old Dunkin' Donuts commercial, and this guy would wake up at 3 a.m. and he would say, time to make the donuts, right? Just like, oh, mercy, do I have to do this? So after 4 or 5 years, you have your Dunkin' Donuts moment, and you pull up into the parking lot, and you say, do I really want to get out of this car and walk the 200 yards into that building? I didn't sleep last night, but that kid that's wearing me out, I guarantee he slept like a baby last night. He's going to be ready. So then you have this crisis moment, and you say, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my real estate license is what I'm going to do, I'm going to go, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And then you get really desperate and you say, it's really weird. I just got this email and I think it's a message from God. There's this Nigerian prince and he said, if I will just, they can take this job, whatever. Well, see, if I'm an educator, though, and I understand that what I do is a calling, in those Dunkin' Donuts moment, I stop and I say, you know what, I may not be particularly excited about lesson plans today or that staff meeting I have to go to or that kid I have to deal with, whatever, but I understand that what I'm doing on this campus, in this district, is me just living out my deepest values. Whatever those values are, I'm here for a reason, I'm here for a purpose, and that deeper purpose is going to get me through all these moments that feel very mundane and feel like just job moments. So that's it, and that reframe is incredibly powerful when we can because by definition we're all passionate about our deepest values, whatever they are. And so when I can make that link between what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis and my deepest values, it provides a fuel source that will sustain me over the course of my lifetime in my calling. So that's the first thing. If I'm going to excel in what I do over the course of my lifetime, it's not a job, it's not a career, it's a calling. Here's the second thing. I have to understand that if I'm going to excel as an educator over the course of my lifetime, I cannot find satisfaction in the calling. I said that right. I do not find satisfaction in the calling. Instead, I find satisfaction in the totality of my life, and I take satisfaction to my calling. That may sound like just a spin on words, but it represents a significant difference. Here's the deal. So this idea that I'm going to find satisfaction in the totality of my life and take it to my calling, another way to say that is I'm going to practice well-being. So we can think of our lives as a wheel, and each of these spokes represents a major area. So if I'm taking care of myself and practicing well-being, my life will look like this, like that green wheel. That's me at my A game. That's me being the best me that I can be. So I'm taking care of my emotions and my finances and my spirit spirit and my body and my occupation. But if I'm not taking care of myself, my wheel doesn't even look like a wheel. So when I'm that green wheel, when I'm taking care of myself, I'm much more resilient to work-related stress, meaning I can tolerate work-related stress much more effectively. But when I'm the red wheel, when I'm not taking care of myself and managing my emotions and my finances and my spirit and my body and all of that, then I'm much more vulnerable to work-related stress, meaning it takes less and less stress to wear me out. And so the way that plays out at a campus or district level is this red wheel. What I know as a psychologist is that if I'm the red wheel, my cup will always be half empty. And when I approach any relationship with that, in that mentality, with my cup is half empty and your job is to fill it, I am dooming that relationship for failure. Because I'm placing tremendous expectation on that other person. And the same is true of my calling. If I go to my calling saying, look, my job's a wreck, my finances are a wreck, my body's a wreck, my emotions are a wreck, my spirit's a wreck, I'm not taking care of myself. All right, calling, all right, campus, all right, district, I'm showing up, and you better fill me up. You better make me whole. You better make me valid. I am dooming that professional relationship to failure. And we know those people, they're like the Eeyores of the world. You know, you give them $100 and they say, great, now I have to go to the bank and get change. I'm probably going to have an accident on the way to the bank, and it's all your fault. You know, I thought you were my friend, but whatever. That, you know, those people are life suckers, right? Nobody wants to work with people like that. Versus this other thing where I'm taking care of myself and I'm finding satisfaction in the totality of my life, and I say, you know what? My cup is at least half full. I'm here on this campus, in this district, wherever my role is. I'm here to pour out. I'm here to give. How are you? What can I do for you? How can I serve you? How can I love you? Is there anything I can do to help you? What can I do to make you successful? How can I empower you with that? Completely different. And I know as a psychologist that when we approach relationships in that posture of service and love and giving, we are setting that relationship up to flourish and to bloom and to grow and to prosper. And the same thing is true in our vocation. When we approach it in a posture of service, paradoxically, we're posturing in ourselves where we're much more in a position to actually receive the small moments. And so those people are the kinds that say, today was a tough day, but you know what? That kid held a door open for me. And I'm going to take that. I'm going to give thanks for that. Thank you. And everyone loves being around those people because they're life givers, right? So that's it. You know, if I'm going to find satisfaction, or if I'm going to be effective at what I do over the course of my lifetime, I have to understand that I'm taking my fullness to my calling, and I'm there to be poured out. I'm there to give. I'm there to serve, right? So those are the two things I found, is that if I'm going to be effective as an educator, number one, it's not a job, it's not a career, it's a calling. And number two, I'm not going to go to that calling looking for satisfaction. I'm going to find satisfaction in my life and take it to the calling. And so out of that research, I wrote my book, The Power of a Teacher. How do I do that? So how do I take care of myself? How do I balance my wheel that way? How do I practice well-being? How do I link my deepest values with what I do on a day-to-day basis? So I told you that my goal this morning was to encourage you, and I have a sneaking suspicion that if I stand up here and muck through all the data and research that I went through to write the book, we would all be asleep. And that's not well, sleep might be encouraging to some of us actually, but not here. I don't want you to sleep. I want you to be encouraged. So I'm not going to talk about the book anymore. For those of social media types, if you just search The Power of a Teacher on Facebook, you can find more information there. But what I want to do to encourage you is I want to share 2 case studies with you. I'm a licensed psychologist. I think if the state board found out that I presented anywhere and didn't do a case study, they would revoke my license. So I'm going to do 2 case studies, and I think these case studies will do more to encourage you than me talking about research. So I'm going to share about these 2 kids. The boy on the left, his name is Lou. The girl on the right, her name is Maya. Lou is a 6th grader. Maya is a 4th grader. These are actual kids. Typically, when we share case studies, we have to de-identify patient information to protect confidentiality. But with both of these kids, I have parental consent for full disclosure. So these are actual kids, actual cases. Now, before I get into this, I want you to stop. I want everybody to close your eyes for 1 sec. Everybody close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, I want you to think about in your role, whatever you do, whether you're in the classroom, at a campus level leader, district level leader, whatever you do, I want you to think about the kid that you've worked with that wears you out the most. I want you to think about the kid at some point in your career that made you think, man, is this really worth it? I want you to think about the kid that makes you stop in the parking lot saying, do I really want to walk into that building? Who is that kid? In fact, I'll go a step further. If you had to pick one kid, this isn't pleasant, but it's necessary. If you had to pick one kid that would be most likely to end up in the back seat of a police car, who's that kid going to be? So you may have 5 or 6 candidates that are all qualified. Just pick one. Okay? So put a sticky note on that. Put a sticky note on that. We're going to come back to that. So let me tell you about these 2 kids here. As I talk about these kids, I'm going to be coming back to these 2 questions. Number 1, do you care about me? And number 2, can I make my own rules? There's so much psychology packed into that, but let me just say this. Anytime there is a leader-follower dynamic, whether it's a parent with children, a teacher with students, an administrator with teachers, a coach with athletes, a boss with employees, whatever it is, for the follower, it's about surrendering control. If I'm going to follow you, I have to surrender control to do that. And for some kids, surrendering control can be a very, very threatening prospect, right? So if I'm going to surrender control and you're going to lead me, I need to know 2 things. Number 1, do you care about me? Because if you don't care about me, I'm not going to surrender control to you. I need to know that you have my best interest at heart. And if I know that, then it's a little easier for me to surrender control to you. That's number 1. And the second thing is that even after I know that you care about me, can I make my own rules? So am I going to be in charge or are you going to be in charge? So if you want to lead, you need to lead strong. You need to be able to get me where you say you're going to go because I'm surrendering control to you, not to anyone else. You need to be in control. So are you going to make the rules or am I? Because I'm going to test that. So basically what it boils down to is this. If I'm going to surrender control, there has to be love. And if I'm going to surrender control, there has to be respect. So those 2 questions, and I'm going to be coming back to those as I talk about this case study. So the first kid, this is Lou, Hispanic male, low socioeconomic status. He's got a single uninvolved parent, history of truancy, interaction with the legal system, undiagnosed depression, and he's using street drugs to self-medicate. The reason this kid is smiling in that picture is because he's got your number. Oh, have mercy, he's got your number. He knows exactly where the boundaries are. He knows exactly what the rules are, and all he wants to do when he shows up from day one is push. I want to push, I want to push, I want to push. I want to wear you down and wear you out so that at the end of the day, I have more real estate, I have more freedom, and you're not in control, but I am, and I'm doing what I want. And that is so much more fun than math or English or anything else that you can offer me. That's why he's smiling, because it's all a big game. So you say, oh, okay, no problem. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to change this kid's life. I know what I'll do. I'll give him a reward. I'll reward this kid. Guess what? Bad news, my friends. You do not have a carrot that is big enough or sweet enough or juicy enough to get his attention, right? So then you say, okay, fine, I'll go the other direction. If I don't have a reward, I'll give him a consequence. I'll punish him. Guess what? More bad news. You do not have a stick that is big enough or hard enough or threatening enough or intimidating enough to back him into compliance. Because this kid quit caring about anything a long, long time ago. Your carrots don't mean anything to me. Your stick doesn't mean anything to me. So suspend me, expel me, whatever. Like one kid said to me, I want them to expel. I'm trying to get them to expel me because last time my mom picked me up and we went to McDonald's and then I got to go home and watch Oprah, right? So as an educator, you're left with some very, very intense and uncomfortable feelings around that kid. You feel angry. You feel frustrated. You feel incompetent, if you could be really honest about it, you know? You feel sad for the kid because you know that with some of these kids, when all the stars align and they actually get into a good moment, they do really, really good work. And you know they have tremendous potential, but there's so much that's keeping them back. All these intense feelings that you experience whenever you're around. And it happens so frequently that your body becomes conditioned to engage a fight or flight response as soon as you see the kid. So as soon as you see them, your muscles tense up, your palms start to sweat, your heart rate accelerates, and you're just prepared for the worst, you know, and that is no fun at all. This is the kid that will wear you out. This is the kid that will make you sit in your car and say, oh, maybe I could get my real estate license, right? If we're all honest, right? So, and I don't blame you for that, and I don't judge you for that one bit. That's this kid, right? And my guess is that based on what I've described about this kid, he probably reminds you of the kid that you were thinking about. Probably got at least a few things in common. So this kid is not in 6th grade anymore. Actually, out of all things, this kid, he grew up and he became a psychologist, and this is what he looks like today. Yes, yes, that kid was me. Thank you, thank you. You might have seen in the program a picture of that guy. That's me, actually, believe it or not. When I took the picture from the back of my book, it was summertime in Texas. So I shaved my head during the summer, and that's how that came about. So just to clarify, I'm the same guy. It's the guy that you looked at in the program. Yep. So what I want to do for you is I want to share my story with you and why it matters to you as an educator. I'm going to pick up my story on the first day of sixth grade. First day of sixth grade, I remember showing up to campus, and I saw this teacher. His last name started with a T, and we called him Mr. T because he was like Mr. T from the A-Team. You know, I pity the fool, just big, bad dude, right? Two things we knew about Mr. T. Number one is that we didn't make the rules with Mr. T. They were his rules, and he was in control. And if we broke the rules, we were going to get a consequence. It was just that simple. But you know, the other thing that I knew about Mr. T was that he didn't care about me. He didn't care about me. What he cared about was making sure that I followed the rules. And so I see Mr. T, and he's locked in on me out of the corner of my eye. And so I try to avoid him, and I'm walking this way, you know, trying to get out of his way. And then I start walking this way, and he's just going to like zoom in on me, right? So finally, he gets right up into my space. You know, he stops me, and he said, "I know who you are. You're Lou Saenz. I know everything about you. I talked to your teachers from last year. I know you gave them a run for the money. I know you're using drugs. I know you've got problems with the law. I know you're skipping school." And he said, "But I want you to understand something, Lou. From the get-go, from day one on this campus, I will get you in order. I will get you in line. It's my job to get you in line. I'm not going to put up with it, and you just need to know that from the get-go." And he said, in fact, if you so much as speak a word of Spanish in my class, me and you and this big brown paddle of mine, we're going to go down to the office and we're going to take care of business. Do you understand me? And I knew right away he meant business. And so I leaned right back into his face and I said, "Sí entiendo, pendejo." So we got some Spanish speakers out here in Vegas. For my non-Spanish speaking friends, I'll translate that for you. It means, yes, I understand perfectly. You might want to Google that before you roll that into your conversational Spanish. Make sure there aren't kids around. No, hombre, vámonos, man. Day one, off to the office, brother, because he said, if you speak Spanish, we're going to take care of business. And, you know, there were rules, and I broke them. So we went down to the office, and we took care of business. And you know what happened? We got locked into a pattern. We got locked into a pattern. Every day, to the office, from the office, to the office, from the office. If I'd had an IEP, goal 1 would have been Lou will go to the office. Goal 2, Lou will come back from the office. Goal 3, repeat goal 1. That was it. That was all I did. You know, and Mr. T, he always had these one-liners, you know, as we were walking down to the office. You couldn't make it through a single day, could you, Lou? You know, Lou, I think it's your job to make my job hell, isn't it, Lou? You know, always had these one-liners. And it wasn't just at school. It was at home, too. You know, my mom was a single-parent mom trying to do the best she could, but just really not equipped with what life had dealt her. And every day I'd come home, you know, "Ay, mijito, what have you done today? Ay, mijito, pues quién te manda? You know, why do you do these things? Ay, mijito, what is it now? When will you learn?" You know. Well, 3 things happened to me that year that made my life particularly difficult. The first is that, it's a long story, but 2 of my friends went to go buy some drugs. There was a shootout, and my friends were murdered. And you know what? The very next day, there I was back on campus. To the office, from the office, to the office, from the office. You couldn't make it through a single day, could you, Lou? Right? Well, the second thing that happened that was related to that was that a group of young men broke into my home and sexually assaulted my cousin. And it was related to the murder. For a number of reasons, I couldn't talk about it. But you know what? The very next day, there I was, back on campus, to the office, from the office, to, you know, it's your job to make my job hell, isn't it, Lou? Well, the third thing that happened is that I was arrested for possession. And I remember the look on my mom's face when she came into juvenile to get me, just the anger in her face. And the first words out of her mouth were, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And that question, it wasn't a question of action. What are you doing here? Well, I'm sitting in this chair with these handcuffs digging into my wrist, wondering what the next 48 hours of my life will look like. That wasn't what she was asking. It was a question of identity. What are you doing here? And I remember thinking, what an absolutely stupid question. Are you kidding me? What am I doing here? I know who I am. I am Lou Saenz. It's my job to make your life hell. I'm never going to make it through a single day. I can't learn. I'm never going to learn. What am I doing here? This is who I am. This is what I do. Where else would I be, right? Well, CPS, Child Protective Services, was never involved with my family, but my mom could read the writing on the wall. She knew that I was only in 6th grade and I was at this level, and I had an older brother that was already on the verge of dropping out. So she voluntarily relinquished parental rights, and I went to live with this. I grew up down in South Texas, way down at the southern tip, about 50 miles from Mexico. And I went to go live with this family near Houston, in what was then this tiny rice farming town outside of Houston called Katy, Texas. And I remember moving up to Katy. It was a different environment. I had grown up with mostly Latino population, 95% Latino. And then when I went to Houston, I think I was the only Latino in my whole school, you know. And I thought, you know what, I don't get it here. I've never seen so many pickup trucks in all my life, but I'm good, man. These people, they love me well. I don't have to worry about food. I've got clothes, you know. I'm going to put my head down and make the most of this. And so I did pretty well at Katy Junior High and Katy High School, you know, and pretty much stayed out of trouble, managed to make decent grades. And again, the family that I was living with, they loved me really well. Well, what I know now is that the change in environment was good for me. But what I know as a psychologist is that we can change a child's environment and that can help. But if the child doesn't deal with the stuff on the inside, or if we as adults don't deal with this, it's just a matter of time, right? And I had never told anybody about my past. I had never told anybody about my trauma or anything because for a number, I was scared. I didn't know how to, whatever. I just kind of put on a happy face and pretended like the past was done. But it was still all in there. And so by the time I was a senior, my depression started to kick back up. And I knew what it was about. It was the family that I lived with. They said, son, we love you, but you're 18 years old now. There's nothing else we can do. You're on your own. And I was terrified. I mean, I was just terrified because I thought, no. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to be that 6th grade kid again. I'm going to fail. No. But I didn't tell anybody that, but I was just terrified. And so my depression started to kick back up. So I graduated from Katy High School, and then sure enough, the next year the bottom fell out, and my depression was crazy. I was using drugs again to self-medicate, and I was in San Antonio. I moved to San Antonio, and I remember I was working as a dishwasher at a fast food restaurant. And I remember coming home from work one morning. It was about 2 a.m., 3 a.m. I'd closed the restaurant, and I wasn't suicidal, but I was thinking, like, really? I'm 19 years old and this is going to be life for the next 60 years? You know, what's the point? And so I remember coming home. I'd met this guy, and he let me, he had a 1-bedroom apartment, and he let me sleep on the living room floor. And everything I owned fit into the bottom half of his hallway closet. And it wasn't much. It was a few clothes, but my prized possession was this box of journals that I had because when I was in 6th grade, I ended up with 3 extra spiral notebooks in my school supplies. And I never told my mom about them because I knew she would take them back to the store because we needed the money. So I kept them. And as a 6th grader, in those notebooks, I learned to write. I learned to draw. And those journals sort of became my therapy, really. And so this box of journals, now that I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, was my prized possession because it was my life. Everything was in it. That was the only place I knew to talk and to be honest about who I was. So I was depressed. It was 3 a.m. and I said, I need to write. I've got some stuff I need to get out. And so as I reached into my journal box, I saw these 2 pieces of paper, and I couldn't figure out what they were. And so I pulled them out. And what they were letters that had been written to me by 2 of my teachers my senior year at Katy High School. One was Joella Exley, who was my English teacher, and one was Polly McRoberts, my creative writing teacher. And I was kind of blown away. I thought, wow, I completely forgot about this, you know? And so I opened these letters up and started to read them. And as I read them, this is part of what one of those letters said. From Mrs. Exley, you're extremely talented and intelligent, but most importantly, you have a good heart. I know you will use your talents to help your fellow man, and that is the most satisfying life a person can have. And then so I put that, there was more to it, but that's what really jumped out. And then I pulled out the next one from Mrs. McRoberts. Don't quit writing, especially in your journal. Someday it may be the basis for your book. You have insight, sensitivity, intelligence, and maturity beyond your tender years. Keep on being you. You're a special person. And that is when the battle began. That was when the real battle began, because I said, wait a minute. I know who I am. I'm Lou Saenz. I'm a 19-year-old version of that 6th grade kid that's never going to make it through a single day, that's never going to learn, whose job it is to make your life hell. I'm depressed again. I'm using drugs again. I'm working as a dishwasher in this fast food restaurant. I know who I am. I know who I am. But hold on. Here are these two women for whom I had tremendous respect that were saying, we beg to differ. We beg to differ. And what I knew about these two women is that they wouldn't have written these words if they absolutely didn't mean it. They had such integrity and such character, they weren't going to lie to me. They really believed that about me. And I was stuck, and I thought, I know who I am, but here are these women, and I respect them too much to call them liars. So what do I do? So I thought about it, and I thought about it, and I said, I got to test this theory. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to tell anybody about this, but I'm going to sign up for one course at UT San Antonio, University of Texas San Antonio. One course. And I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. I don't know how I'm going to fit it in with my work schedule. I don't know how I'm going to get there. But I'm going to sign up for one course, Introduction to English, just to see what's going on here. So I took this Introduction to English course, and at the end of the semester, I got a letter from the university. Couldn't believe it. I actually passed it. I made an A in Introduction to English. Couldn't believe it. I had earned a college credit. And I thought, wait a minute. Maybe they were right about me. Maybe they could see something in me I couldn't see in myself. On the one hand. On the other hand, maybe this whole thing was a clerical error, for all I know, right? So I said, I need to test this again. I need to take another class. So I took another class. I took another English class. And I passed that one. I couldn't believe it. And so I think I'm either I can do this or I'm getting punked by the university. Something's going on here. Well, so then I really had to start thinking I think they could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself, Took another class, and then just before I turned 27 years old, I graduated with an undergraduate degree in English from UT San Antonio. Couldn't believe it. Never would have thought I was going to get a college degree. And by the time I was 27, I said, they were right. They were right, and I was wrong. They could see something in me I couldn't see in myself. And so it was in that moment I said, you know what? I'm done being Lou. I'm done being that kid that's never going to learn. I'm done being that kid whose job it is to make your life hell. I'm going to start going by my first name now. I'm going to be Adam. And it was just sort of psychologically my way of giving myself space and permission to be somebody else. So Adam said, this is crazy. I'm not going to tell anybody about this, but I'm going to apply for a master's degree in counseling. Because to this point, I had never told anybody about my past, and I was already in my mid to late 20s, and I thought, I want to get a counseling degree just to figure out what the heck happened to me, right? So I applied for a master's at UTSA. I was accepted. Then I got my first real job. I was working as a case manager for a private foster placement agency called the Bear Foundation, and my job was to coordinate mental health services for these kids in foster care. And so I would go to ARD meetings, I would go to med checks, I would go to therapy, take these kids to therapy. And what I realized working with these foster kids was, Adam, that's you. You were that kid. And then I thought, well, hold on a sec. If what we know for these kids is that they need therapy to get better and to talk about their stuff, Adam, maybe you should talk to somebody about your stuff. You still have never told anybody. So by then I had a job, I had benefits, I actually went into counseling. And let me tell you something. In therapy, I found truth and it set me free. What I realized is that my friend's murder was not my fault. It was not my responsibility. The sexual assault, it was not my fault, not my responsibility. My dysfunctional family and all of that drama, not my fault, not my responsibility. But me, my life, and the rest of the days I have on this planet, nobody else's fault and totally my responsibility. And let me tell you something, there aren't many truths that I've embraced in my life that were both at the same time so liberating and so terrifying. So that's it, Adam, it's on you. What are you going to do with it, buddy? Well, by then I'd finished my master's degree and I said, this is really crazy. I'm not going to tell anybody about this, but I want to apply for a PhD. I think I can do this. I think I'm actually pretty good at school. I applied to Texas A&M. I was accepted into their school psychology program, did 4 years of coursework in College Station. The last thing we have to do as psychology PhD students is a year of pre-doctoral internship. I applied to Harvard Medical School. I was accepted under a fellowship appointment, did my major rotations at Boston Children's. And then in March of 2001, I had a moment. I was sitting in Logan Airport. It was snowing outside. I was waiting for my flight to fly back to College Station to defend my dissertation. I was going to graduate in August, and I had applied to postdoc positions at Brown, Yale, and Columbia, and Brown was my top choice. So I'm sitting there waiting for my flight, snowing outside, and my cell phone rang. And so I picked up my phone. I said, hello, this is Adam. And then a voice on the other end of the phone said, Adam, hi, this is Dr. Jay Reeve at Brown Medical School. Listen, we got your paperwork. We really enjoyed our interview with you, and I'm calling to offer you a faculty appointment at Brown. And I was just thrilled, like doing the happy dance in Logan, but trying to play it cool on the phone. Yes, okay, that's great. Didn't want to seem desperate. Just thrilled though, right? This is my top choice. And so as he's telling me about this position, I had a call come in. And I said, Dr. Reeve, I said, listen, man, I hate to ask you, but I got a call coming in. I don't recognize the area code. Do you mind if I put you on hold? He said, no, not at all. So I click over. I said, hello, this is Adam. A voice on the other end of the phone says, hey, Adam, hi, this is Dr. Chuck Saenz at Yale Medical School. Listen, we got your paperwork. We really enjoyed our interview with you, and I'm calling to offer you a faculty appointment at Yale. I said, bro, I got Brown on the other line. I'm going to have to call you back. So I clicked over, and I took the position at Brown. And then I hung up and I thought, are you kidding me? Did that just happen? Did I just hang up on Yale because I had Brown on the other line, And then it hit me, Adam, you can write your own ticket, man. You can write your own ticket. You are qualified to practice psychology at any school district in the country. You're qualified to practice psychology at any hospital in the country. You're qualified to research psychology at any university in the country, and you're bilingual, So you decide where you want to go, and I bet you they'll make a space for you. And I think for anyone to have a moment where you realize your skill set is that valued, it's a landmark moment. But when you grow up doing without and you have that moment, it's surreal. It's surreal, And so then I realized I wouldn't be having this moment right now if I didn't have a PhD in psychology. And I never would have had the courage to apply for a PhD if I hadn't first earned my master's degree. And I couldn't have applied for a master's degree if I hadn't first finished my undergraduate degree in English. And I don't know that I ever would have stepped out had two women not spoken truth into my life and challenged me and caused me to reshape who I am. So obviously, Mrs. McRoberts and Mrs. Exley, they had an incredible impact in my life. But you know what? Before they could be incredible to me, they first had to be credible. And they were credible. Every day we walked into their class, they knew, here was the deal. I don't care who you are, student. I don't care what color your skin is. I don't care what kind of music you listen to. I don't care what side of the tracks you're from. I don't care who your mama is, who your daddy is. If you're in my class, you don't make the rules, I do. And if you break them, you're going to get a consequence. And if you're in my class, I don't care who you are, I love you. I will be your biggest advocate. I will always want the best for you. And they lived that out from the center of their being, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, so that when my time came and they spoke into my life, who was I to argue with them? They had earned such a platform in my heart. And I don't think that they could have done that year after year if they were showing up to somewhere to collect a paycheck. I think they might have pulled it off a little longer if they were trying to climb a career ladder. But I think the reason they did it with such power and grace and elegance is that their deepest value was to connect with children. Their deepest value was to build relationships with children. And because that was their value, they lived it out. So let me close this case study with this. I want to illustrate the role that you have, the power that you have, and the power that Mrs. Exley had and Mrs. McRoberts. There's so much psychology in that. I could come at that in so many different ways. I want to go somewhere where I can get down and dirty psychology. That place is, of course, the Antiques Roadshow. Any Antiques Roadshow fans in the house? Oh man, I love me some Antiques Roadshow. Yes, yes. So if you've never seen Antiques Roadshow, the deal is this. They set up shop in convention centers like this, and you bring your junk to them, and when they look at it, these expert appraisers, you cross everything you can cross and hope that what they find is something that's valuable. So my favorite vignettes are ones where you'll have a lady that'll bring a chair in, right? Some kind of chair. And then you'll see this guy right here, the guy in the brown jacket. His name is Lee Kino, so he's one of their expert appraisers, and he's got a twin brother that does it as well. And I love him. He always looks like he just walked out of a Starbucks, man. This guy's just high energy, right? So this lady will bring her chair in, and she'll say, oh my goodness, when I saw that chair, I got so excited. I haven't seen anything like this in 25 years. And so then he'll start to describe the chair kind of the way he's doing there in that picture. And he'll say, this is classic Victorian. This is Tudor. See these claw feet right here? These were only made by this maker in such and such year. And then he'll say, this wood right here is a little faded because this wood was imported from Italy. And I know this maker did that because that was his fingerprint, in this chair's design. And he'll go on and on and on and on to describe it. So then at the end of all of that, and it's so obvious he knows the chair, at the end of all that he'll say, tell me again, where'd you get this? And the lady will say, well, I found it at a garage sale for $5. Really? And he'll say, well, what do you use it for now? And she'll say, well, my husband keeps it down in the workshop. He uses it as a workbench. And I'll say, okay. She'll say, do you have any idea what it's worth? And she'll say, well, as far as I know, it's worth $5. I've never had it appraised. And he'll say, oh, ma'am, listen, if this chair were to come up at auction today, because it's so rare and because it's in such good condition, I would estimate its value at $25,000, right? And then of course, boo, she'll start crying. Boo. I tried to tell my husband, but he never listens to me, right? What I love about those vignettes is that they illustrate the simple but fundamental human truth, and that is this: value determines function. Value determines function. If I think my chair is worth $5, I'm going to treat it like a $5 chair. And if I trash it out and destroy it, no big deal, because I can run out to Walmart and get me another one. But if I know this chair is one of a kind, if I know that it's rare and that it's special, I'm going to insure it. I'm going to protect it. I'm going to do everything I can do to make sure that chair sees the next generation. And the same is true for human beings. We as human beings, and I'm not just talking about the 5-year-old showing up to kindergarten for the first time, I'm talking about we as grown adults desperately need to understand our value and desperately need to be reminded of our value. And when we understand our value, we live as though our choices matter. And that is the power that you have in your classrooms, on your campuses, in your districts, is you are the Lee Kenos. Polly McRoberts and Joella Exley, they were my Lee Kenos. They were my expert appraisers. We know that our kids have tremendous value, every one of them, not because of how smart they are or anything like how well they can throw football or anything like that, but because they're human beings. Because they are human beings, they have value. We know that. But you know what the great tragedy is? That not all of those kids are going to have access to expert appraisers. Some of those kids, their appraisers are people that don't know, that they have never been accurately appraised themselves. And so those kids may have never heard, good job, great, I believe in you, you can do it, this is awesome, keep it up, good work, I'm proud of you. And that is the power that you have as in your roles as educator, is you are the expert appraiser. You are shaping identities. You are imparting value. Let me conclude this case study real quick. If you ever happen to be in Katy, Texas, driving down the west side of Katy, Texas on Westheimer Parkway, you'll see that building, and that's Joella Exley Elementary. And if you ever happen to be driving down the north side of Katy, down Franz Road, you will see that building, and that is Polly McRoberts Elementary. And I'm so proud of Katy for honoring these women. If you'll give me 10 more minutes, I want to go to the second case study just very, very quickly, and I'll call it a morning. This little girl, Maya, 4th grade girl there. When I look at that picture of Maya, honestly, her smile does not convince me. And then I think for this little girl, what is there to smile about? She's in 4th grade. She's been in CPS custody for 2 years at this point. What is there to smile about, So what happens with kids that come from chaotic families, whether CPS is involved with them or not, is that they develop this foundational layer of affect. And that foundational layer of affect and emotion is usually fear and anger, because I'm so scared about the chaos and unpredictability and volatility in my home, right? So they bring that to school. And what they know about that building called school and the adults that are in that building is that building and those adults can be the safest place on the planet for them. So when they have this underlying layer of affect and they feel angry and afraid, they know that if they act it out at school, that's the safest place to do it. And that's part of why we see some of the behaviors that we see at school. So as difficult as it makes our calling in many situations, in some ways it's the highest compliment, because that child is saying, I know that you value me and are safe enough that I can let this out with you. But it's difficult. So they start acting out at school, then CPS gets involved, and then they take them from their home and they end up in foster care. So we think, well, good, at least they're in a safe place now. Yes, but the child thinks, that home was crazy, but it was my home. It was my home. That lady was my mom, and I'm not there anymore. So in addition to this layer of intense fear, then you add on to that sadness and grieving, because I'm not with them. And I'm in this foster care, and I don't know these people, and then there's shame and all of that associated with it, and so that leads to more behavior problems. And then what happens with kids in foster care is that by the time they get to be 10, 11, 12 years old, statistically speaking, the likelihood that they will ever be adopted, it drops dramatically. So then you add a third layer onto that, which is I was sad and angry about my family. Then I was really sad because I got separated from them. And now I'm 11, 12 years old, I'm in foster care. I'm not going to find the forever family. I'm not going to get adopted. So then there's hopelessness. So what's the point, right? And that's a lot for any child. That's a lot for anyone, let alone a child. And that was Maya's life. And so what happens is they start acting out at school, and then there's this trail of paperwork, office referrals, discipline reports, psychological evaluations, a list of diagnoses, a list of medications. So then if any family ever decides that they want to adopt, the state will say, listen, before you sign up for this, you need to read the child's file. There has to be full disclosure. You need to understand exactly what you're getting into because this isn't going to be a bait and switch, right? And that, understandably, is very intimidating for many potential adoptive families. So that was the case with Maya. That was the life she was living. And so then what happens is that they don't just act out at school where it's safe, then they start acting out outside of school where it's not safe. So they have a history of interaction with the legal system, they start breaking the law, they get a probation officer, that whole court thing starts to happen. It's just a vicious and unfortunate cycle. And that was Maya's life. Well, in March of 2010, Maya ended up in Judge Cindy Miller's court in Bryan, Texas. But Maya, her case was a little bit different. On that day, in March of 2010, Judge Miller slammed her gavel and forever changed Maya Chavez's life. Because Maya, a family said, we want to adopt her. We know what we're signing up for. We're going to take this on. So Maya went to Judge Miller, and Judge Miller made it official, and that was the day that my wife and I and my biological children adopted her, and that was the day that Maya Chavez became Maya Saenz, and there we are with Judge Miller there. Thank you. So she was so cute. That was on a Tuesday. Well, that Saturday, she and I had our very first daddy-daughter dance with her school. So there we are getting ready for the daddy-daughter dance. And I said, all right, sweet girl, here's the deal. We're going to the dance. You look beautiful. You got new shoes. You got a new dress. Awesome. I said, I'm going to take you out to dinner anywhere you want to go. And man, her little eyes just lit up like saucers. And she said, really, anywhere? I said, anywhere, you name it. Steak, seafood, I don't care. Chick-fil-A. Oh yeah, Chick-fil-A, man. There we were, Chick-fil-A, rocking the waffle fries and the chicken sandwich in our formal wear. It was a bomb. So we're sitting there having our Chick-fil-A and our formal wear, and then the small talk sort of ran out. She had been with us about 6 months at that point. And I just wanted to make a point to connect with her, And so after we ate and the small talk ran kind of short, I reached over and I held her hand. And I said, sweet girl, there are two things you need to understand about being my daughter and about being family with us. And I said, here's the first thing. You need to understand that I set the rules. You don't. Your job is to follow the rules. There's not a question mark at the end of that statement. There's not a comma. There's a period. I set the rules. Your mom and I set the rules, and your job is to follow them. You have to earn my trust, and as you earn my trust, then you can speak more into that process, but for right now, you're not in control, I am. I set the rules, and your job is to follow them. Do you understand that? And she said, yes, sir, I do. I said, great. Here's the second thing you need to understand. And I said, do you know what my job is? And she said, yes, sir, your job is to make sure that I follow the rules. I said, no, ma'am, my job is to lay my life down for you. My job is to protect you, to provide for you, to give you direction, to love you and to support you. I said, sweet girl, you don't understand this about yourself, but you are the most precious, valuable thing on this planet. There is no pile of money anywhere on the planet that is more valuable than you. There is no jewelry anywhere on the planet. There is no stock portfolio anywhere on this planet that is more valuable than you. And my job is to lay my life down for you so that you will understand your value. And I said, sweet girl, when you understand how precious you are and how valuable you are, you will live in this life knowing that you matter, knowing that you're here for a reason, knowing that you're here for a purpose. You were not a mistake. You're here to impact the world around you, and you're here to live as though your choices matter. And then in a moment of incredible insight, she looked at me. And she said, Dad, I don't think I've ever been loved that way. And I said, sweet girl, I understand that. I really do. And I said, let me tell you a story about a kid I knew. His name was Lou. And I told her my story. And I think this peace came over her, because all she knew was that Dr. Saenz and his wife had come to the group home and taken her away. And that was all she knew about me, was that I was Dr. Saenz. But as I shared my story with her, I think she began to understand that maybe I had some more insight. And that was a very powerful, powerful moment in our relationship. And the reason I share her as a case study to close this morning is that I just want to illustrate the generational impact, the power that you have in your roles, in your classroom, on your campus, in your district, wherever you are. When you change a child's life, you change every breath they take for the rest of their life. You change how they perceive themselves. You change the choices they make about what they'll do with their lives, about who they will spend their life with. All of that changes. That is the power that you have. That is the power that you have. My wife and I were married in 1995, and this is what our kids look like in 2003. My daughter Elisa is there on the left. In the middle is my son Isaiah, and on the bottom is my son Andrew. This is what my kids look like in 2008. There's Isaiah on the left, there's Elisa in the middle, and there's my son Andrew on the right. And this is what my kids look like in 2012. There's my daughter Elisa on top, my son Isaiah on top, and then in the black is my son Andrew, and there's my daughter Maya. People say, oh, she's so lucky that y'all adopted her. You know what? I'll let her answer that. I know that we are lucky that we have her. Our family is richer and healthier and more robust and more loving now because of her, and I am so grateful that she's a part of our life. So I want to conclude with this. I want you to close your eyes again. Close your eyes, and I want you to think about that kid that wears you out. I don't blame you. Man, if that kid doesn't wear you out and make you not want to get out of your car, I would say either one of two things is true of you. Either you're a superhero or you're in denial. Because that kid will wear you out. But I want to take this moment with your eyes closed. Just think about that kid, and let me just speak something to you on behalf of that child. Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. Thank you for coming to work today. I don't know where I'll end up when I'm 19. I may be earning academic honors at an Ivy League university. I may be serving my country in the military. I may be an employed high school graduate. I may be in jail. I may not even make it to 19. Only God knows. But regardless of where I might be and what I might be doing at 19, our interaction, you the teacher and me the student, it shapes me. You need to know that even though this school building may sometimes seem like a zoo to you, in some very important ways, this school building can be the safest place on earth for me. You need to know that when you're teaching me, even at your worst, you are a better influence on me than much of what and who I experience off this campus. And you need to know that when you love me, even at your worst, you have the potential to love me more sincerely and effectively than many people I'm around away from this campus. The state will give me a test once a year that measures some of what you've taught me, but life will give me a test every day that measures all of what you've taught me. So thank you for teaching me. Especially in those moments when every part of my being is communicating that I don't want to be taught by you. And thank you for loving me, especially in those moments when every part of my being is communicating that I don't want to be loved by you. The bottom line is that I need you. I need to know that you care about me. I need to know that I don't make the rules. And I may never be fortunate enough to appreciate or express that or even realize that, but I hope you're courageous enough never to forget it. Thank you for coming to work today, sir. Thank you for coming to work today, ma'am. Please take care of yourself. Please be well, and please come back tomorrow. You went into education to make a difference. I really believe that. I really believe that. As cliche as that may sound, it's absolute truth, and you weren't wrong. If you're not experiencing occupational well-being, your hope lies in the truth that you have power to link your deepest value systems, whatever that value system is, with what you do on a day-to-day basis, so that even the most mundane acts have the potential to become an act of worship to that which you understand to be divine and sacred. If you're not experiencing occupational well-being, your hope lies in the truth that you have power to connect with your colleagues and experience authentic, life-giving community. And if you're burned out, if you're tired, if you're wondering whether what you do matters and whether it's really worth it, your hope lies in the truth that I, of all people, am standing on this stage today talking to you. What you do matters. Be encouraged. I don't want you to leave those doors without knowing that what you do absolutely matters. You are important. And I'm going to close by going back to that question that my mom asked me in juvenile. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And I want to just plant that for you. You're going to leave here, you're going to have fun, and then you're going to go back to your homes and your lives, and then we're going to have a winter holiday. Sometime around January, you're going to have your Dunkin' Donuts moment. And in that moment, I want you to go back to the question, what am I doing here? What am I doing? Am I just here to collect a paycheck? Am I just trying to climb a ladder? Or have I linked my deepest values, what's important to me, with what I do on a day-to-day basis? And I want to end by answering the same question. What am I doing here? Well, I'm here today. I know who I am today. I know who I am today. My name is Dr. Adam Lewis Saenz, and I'm here today because my life was impacted by the power of a teacher. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you this morning, and may God bless you as you go back to your lives, wherever state you're in. Thank you. Have a great day.